Hi, Regis. How's it going?
Oh, good, Selena. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I did have a question for you today, though, IT related.
All right, shoot.
I wanted to learn a little bit about phishing and fishing with a PH, not the one, actually
Oh,
go out
yeah.
catching fish.
Uh,
But what is phishing? I hear a lot about it.
well, phishing is essentially an act for a bad actor um, to treat you as a fish, and they try to bait you into performing an action. And typically, it comes through an email.
So, going off that, what types of phishing are there?
Some want to just straight interject, for instance, a malware or ransomware. Some are less harmful. They're more like asking you to transfer some money to this offshore account. Um, but there is actually a very prevalent type of phishing attacks recently that are aimed to steal your credentials, because I think the bad actors have realized that people are not really good in protecting their passwords or having good discipline in using different passwords for their online accounts, and also um, not using proper protection in terms of protecting your password credentials. So one of the particular cases that we're coming across quite frequently is people trying to steal your email credential, namely Microsoft 365 email credential.
Don't people
Uh,
use things like a two-factor authentication to help?
yeah, so when this type of phishing attacks first surfaced, we actually started recommending that everybody turn on two-factor auth for their email accounts. Um, two-factor authentication um, from a mechanism perspective is, after you enter your password, an additional form of authentication will be asked of you. So either a text message will be sent to your phone, or if you choose to use the authenticator app on your phone, it would ask you to enter that one-time password.
Hmm.
So two-factor authentication is a good protection mechanism for somebody breaching your primary password. So in other words, if you're using, especially if you're using the same password for multiple accounts, if you choose to do that, I don't advise you to do that, but if you choose to do that, at least turn on multi-factor authentication, so that every time you log in, you not only have to enter that password that you use, but also that one-time password.
Right. I guess it's very important. I mean, someone like me, you know, I try to keep my passwords similar because I don't want to forget them. That's a big issue when I change it. But I guess it's more important to, have to reset your password as opposed to having someone break in.
Two-factor authentication worked very well for a while, but then it's always a cat and mouse game in the security industry. So the bad actors have figured out a way of taking advantage of what Microsoft have introduced, essentially to give the end users more convenience. So if, for instance, if you have Microsoft Office email and you have two-factor authentication turned on, um, what you will notice is that it doesn't ask you for that password every single time.
Hmm.
So it may ask you immediately after you turn on two-factor auth. But let's say, for instance, you fire up Outlook. The first time you turn on two-factor auth, it would ask you for that secondary credential. But after that, what you notice is it doesn't ask you again, at least for quite a while. Um, so the mechanism behind it is essentially it places a trust on that computer that you're using. And because of that trust, and the bad actors were able to take advantage of that. What essentially now is the phishing campaign that they tried to steal your password in the past, they added that secondary authentication bait as well. So pop up, when you click on an email that's a phishing email, you'll see a very authentic Microsoft looking login screen with not only your password, but also asking for your secondary authentication for your 2FA. You type that in, the bad actors capture that, authenticates a device that they own to Microsoft, and then that Microsoft will place a trust on that device. And then the end result is false sense of security. You think your Microsoft account is protected. The bad actor actually has plenty of time because we kind of heard this, we kind of experienced this. Because they're more sophisticated, they're actually doing a very deep dive attack. They're monitoring your email. They're reading through your email, and they're actually sending out very specific targeted messages based on your email history to a very targeted recipient for a very specific thing that only potentially you would know, but they know because they read your email. So that's actually a very scary type of attack. And, so.
That is very scary because you think you can trust it completely if it's coming from Microsoft, quote unquote.
Yeah, and it actually comes from your email address, right? So no spam filtering, no phishing filter is gonna capture that. The content of that secondary fish, when they target, let's say, your banker, will be very specific. If they can read through your email history with that person, they can capture personal information. Hey, how's your kid doing in school? They can, have all the account information, even forms, right? You're in the practice sending out a request for a fund transfer on the 15th of every month in this format. They can absolutely replicate that.
Wow.
So phishing attacks are getting more sophisticated. So the only thing that they have not and will not ever be able to overcome is your vigilance. All right.
I was going to say, what's the best tips to, like, whatever you can offer to help us out with that? It's just personal vigilance and keeping
Personal
track.
vigilance. When you receive an email, regardless of because you can't. There are a lot of different things that the old phishing, the more generic phishing attacks, it's easy for you to sort of spot. For instance, if you see an email from your boss, you can kind of look at the phone address and ascertain it's a phishing email because the address doesn't look right. But with the more sophisticated attacks, you get an email from a person that you may know. It looks absolutely authentic, and your only defense is trust no one, right? Especially if it asks you to click something, right?
Right.
One tip for everybody is before you click, you can hover your mouse on top of that button or the URL and look at the URL you're actually going to be clicking on. If it doesn't look right, don't click, right? Assume that it's
What would
fake.
make it not look right, in your opinion?
So for example, if it claims to be a email from, let's just say Zoom, right? If you hover above it, it doesn't say zoom.com, then it's not from Zoom. Even though all the text the button may look completely authentic. So if it says, we need to authenticate through Microsoft and you hover it, it doesn't say Microsoft, then it's not from Microsoft. That's one line of defense, but cat and mouse game, there are ways around it. And so still it's just being very vigilant. All these things, if you accidentally fall into it because it looks like Microsoft, but without getting into technical detail, they can actually take advantage of the fact that people do look at the URLs and they use this thing called Microsoft Flow to actually redirect somebody to the wrong URL. But so even if you click and you get, especially when you get an email and you get this screen that asks you to authenticate, don't ever trust it. You don't ever want to type anything in unless you're absolutely sure. Look at the URL of that screen. Look at the top of your browser. Make sure it is absolutely the place that you think you are. If that information is not available, if you're in doubt, don't do it. Right? It's
Hmm.
a scary world out there. You know, if you have roles in your company that you know you're managing the money, you're the accountant, you're a CFO, you're a prime target because people can look at you know people's LinkedIn profile and specifically target those people that can actually order money transfers.
Right.
So
And I
there's
guess for people who are actually expecting to get emails from unknown email addresses, for someone like me, I'm generally expecting an email from somebody because I don't have a lot of people. But if it's a separate email where it's more random inquiries and things like that, that's more risky to me.
yeah. Yeah, you know, don't click unless you're absolutely sure on
Hmm.
URLs or links or buttons. Um, and you know, if you're in, you know, if you're in a role that you have a lot of authority over, let's say, funding, you want to really be extra careful.
Wow, Regis, thank you so much for all that information. There was a lot of things I actually didn't know and important for people to know. If people need help, how can they contact you?
Oh yeah, you know, I'm the owner of TeamLogic IT over here in Cerritos. You know, we provide IT services, and you know, I'm a cybersecurity expert with CISSP certificate. Um, so people can, you know, contact me at 562-263-9688, or send me an email, rpei@teamlogicit.com.
Mhm.
Love to help for any kind of cybersecurity compliance questions, you know, or if you just have you know need for general IT support, you know that's our core business.
Great. Sounds good. Oh, thanks so much for talking to me today. I've learned a lot.
Oh, thank you, Selena, for having this opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Regis.
Thanks.